After years of teetering on the edge, I finally did it. I took the plunge and bought a 2024 Tesla Model 3. And let me tell you, as someone who agonizes over every large purchase, this was not an easy decision for me. I've been eyeing Teslas for years now, doing test drives, renting them while on vacation, but each time there was something missing. That was until I drove the new updated 2024 Highland edition of the Model 3. Suddenly, everything clicked. Now, I know this isn't a car review channel, but the truth is the Tesla Model 3 isn't just a car for car enthusiasts. It's a car that appeals to a much broader audience, which is why it's been such a massive success. And I couldn't help myself. I had to merge my passion for filmmaking and my newfound love for this car and share why this specific model finally convinced me to make the leap. Over the years, I rented and test drove probably half a dozen different Teslas. I was always blown away by the minimalist design, the innovative features, and the undeniable cool factor. But when it came to the actual driving experience, it didn't feel like I was driving a luxury car. Sure, the regenerative braking was neat and the tech was impressive, but when I compared it to other cars in the same price range, they felt more refined. They had that it factor. But when 2024 came around and I finally got behind the wheel of the new Highland Model 3, something changed. And suddenly the driving experience felt different. It felt right. And I made the order within a week. And trust me, that never happens. I've never been a fan of dealerships. Having worked in advertising, I've been in my fair share of them, so I appreciate how seamless and hassle-free the entire buying process was online. Though I do wish they led with the actual price instead of the estimated savings. For my configuration, I went with a dual motor, long-range ultra-red Model 3 with standard wheels and a sleek black interior. It's not the most basic option, but it's far from the top tier. The exterior is more aerodynamic with a sleeker, less bubbly look than the previous models. The ultra red color is a stunning upgrade from previous models. It's so much richer than the old bright red. And the full Tesla logo on the back, that's a really nice touch. Inside, the car stays true to Tesla's minimalist vibe, but there's one notable change: the missing turn signal star. It's an odd decision, and at first I found myself instinctively reaching for it, only to be reminded it's not there. The gear shift is controlled entirely on the touchscreen, swiping up for drive and down for reverse. Everything is done through that massive iPad-like screen, which is an adjustment for someone who's used to physical buttons. But once you get the hang of it, it's intuitive. One of my favorite small touches is the customizable LED lights inside. It's a little thing, but being able to change the ambiance on the fly is a fun and surprisingly satisfying feature. Oh, and the small passenger screen in the back, that's a game changer for anyone with kids. It keeps them entertained for long drives and gets some pretty wild reactions from passengers the first time they see it. As someone who's never been super confident with parallel parking or tight maneuvers, I have to give a shout out to the camera system. The real-time rendering on screen is astonishingly accurate, and it has completely eliminated my parking anxiety. I no longer worry about hitting anything, and I can safely say I've gained a lot of confidence in my driving since getting the car. Now let's talk about performance. The pickup is especially impressive with the dual motor. I've never driven anything quite like this, and the regenerative braking is just the ideal way to drive in my opinion. I feel like I have total control over the car, and there's less driver fatigue and concern. The automatic hold the car does prevents any type of drifting when stopped, which is especially useful on steep roads and my steep driveway. It just feels overall like I'm gliding on the road. It's quiet, it's easy, and it just makes driving more enjoyable. You can accelerate rapidly, feel the rush of that pickup, but at the same time always feel like you're in control. The swiping and menus are very similar to the experience on the iPad, but I definitely think it's an adjustment when it comes to operating the motor vehicle. The air control can be especially a little confusing at first. For example, controlling the temperature is on the main screen, but you have to swipe up to control the amount of air blowing through. But I do think it's very clever and unique that you can map the air specifically. And obviously all the gizmos and gadgets are fun. I still find it hilarious that you can play racing games while you move the car wheel. I probably won't be using much of that, but it's really fun to show off to family and friends. Of course, the biggest adjustment with owning a Tesla is switching from gas to electric. I'll admit, I had some anxiety about taking the leap, but honestly, the transition has been easier than I expected. I don't have to worry about fluctuating gas prices anymore. In fact, I couldn't even tell you what the price is of gas. Charging costs are minimal. In Pennsylvania, it's about $12 to charge at a supercharger, and at home, it's even cheaper. Sure, the upfront costs can be pretty steep compared to something like a Honda or Toyota, but when you factor in long-term savings on fuel and maintenance, it's a pretty solid deal. I don't have to worry about oil changes or other expensive maintenance every 5,000 miles. Besides tires and cosmetics, upkeep is practically non-existent. I always hated bringing my Honda into the dealership for something minor, only for them to come back with hundreds of dollars worth of repairs I didn't ask for. I was just so over this. Charging has been mostly painless. When I was living in California, it was slightly inconvenient because I did not have my own charger and the supercharger rates were higher. But now living in a house in Philadelphia and just simply using the mobile charger, my rates have been super low and charging has been incredibly convenient. Sure, with this particular setup, the car charges at snail pace, only charging about 2% per hour, but I only drive about 10 miles per day, so it works perfectly for me. I didn't have to worry about spending an extra $500 on a home supercharger. If I need a quick charge, I can just drive down the street to Wawa and use the supercharger there for $12 and it's done in 30 minutes. In reality, you do need to pick the right solution for you. This is a big factor when considering buying an electric vehicle. You don't want to get stuck on empty because you can't just put in a gallon of gas to get yourself home. You're going to get towed instead. Now, even with this car being as close to perfect as any I have ever driven, it doesn't come without its flaws. And when I say flaws, I'm talking about mostly some slightly annoying but unnecessary quirks. The most obvious being the lack of turn signal stalk in the steering wheel. The one big difficulty I find now is pressing the signal button while the wheel is already turned. Not a big deal, but not a necessity to remove this, other than making it more minimalist. The car is also much lower than I'm used to, and I have a driveway with an incline, which the front bumper often scrapes the ground if I drive out too fast. And while I love the technology in this car, there are some paywalls for things like Spotify, which feels a little frustrating when most other cars offer those features for free. The safety features, while I appreciate them, are a little bit dramatic and go off at seemingly random times. But I'm nitpicking at this point. So, despite a few flaws, I can say without a doubt that the positives far outweigh the negatives. Driving has gone from a boring, mundane task to something I actually look forward to. I enjoy driving it, driving other people in it, just sitting in it, taking care of it. And of course, I enjoy driving a more sustainable car and knowing that I'm making just a teeny little difference in this world. If you find yourself like me, right on the cusp of making the move to Tesla, but you just aren't quite sure, as long as you can afford it, I highly recommend making the move. This is the model that stands out and that will put you over the edge. Besides my house, it has been one of the best things I've ever bought. And after 6 months, I know for sure I am never going back.